want to name that. Have folks heard of the report that came out in 2020 called Creating New Futures? Yeah, some folks? Yeah. Okay, this divide's really interesting. So in 2020, Creating New Futures was this like grassroots report or manifesto with the subtitle Working Guidelines for Ethics and Equity in Presenting Dance and Performance. And one of the main provocations in that's really stuck with me over the last 5 years also feels really relevant right now. And I'm craving in my nervousness and all of the above, like this accountability work and this manifestation work. I'm still hungry for more coming out of this weekend. And so I just want a loving provocation to the room, particularly the folks with institutional power. This is from 2020. Some of the big organizations sit back and wait to see what everyone else is doing. They do this with programming, who are the hot artists who got funding they can use, but also with decolonizing or making genuine progress on equity. They wait for other organizations to do it first, usually the smaller ones that are more financially vulnerable, so that they can take all the risk or fail in public. And then the big organizations duck into their slipstream and ride the draft. They try to gauge just the right moment. They can't wait too long or they look shamed into doing it. Being in the middle of the pack where they call just the right amount of attention to themselves lets them change enough to appease their peers and the artists, but not alienate older white donors. A lot of those smaller organizations won't be around anymore to do this for them, but the pressures from the masses are going to be greater. So bigger institutions are going to have to lead now to step up and get right quickly and visibly.
I think both of the reports are still online under in their Tumblr account, Creating New Futures. Sixto has something to say. I will defer.
No, I guess this is actually, Paul, thank you for that. And it's great to be in a room of practitioners and academics. As a person who's married to an academic, it's also one of the things. But I actually have to ask you, as a practitioner, what is the role of academics in this? We are moving fast. We are moving, and many of our folks are dying, or they will be dying in this aspect. I know academia does not move that fast. But how are you part of, not only are we informing you all, but how are you all helping us to actually do the work?
Yeah, this was the topic of our first ever meeting, which was kind of this frustration with either that academia moves slow or that people act as though it moves slow, and really it's never going to change, like the whole gloom and doom of all of this. But one thing I've talked to Dr. Jackson about a little bit is the Don't Waste This Crisis, which is the title of an essay that I literally just finished writing, like this dissolution of project-based grants, the sort of panic around the dissolution of individual artist fellowships, or the shrinking of all that support, which is really part of a longer retrenchment. You know, we've talked about concretely, like making demands on universities, which are sites of knowledge production. Why doesn't every American university have artist residencies, have visiting professorships, have an absolute commitment to being purveyors of public good, which cultural expression is, and make sure their space is never empty? You know, can we replace some of these residency programs that are getting defunded with an actual demand on institutions of higher education to harbor artists, particularly local artists, that are adjacent to their communities who are often alienated by their very presence? So concrete examples, the naming of the predatory nature of MFA education, which has really been critiqued a lot. But if you can't get individual artist fellowship, or if it's not enough money because of where you come from, where is your 2-year research and development grant in the United States to sit and create and think and fail without a product in mind? For a lot of people that I see, it turns into the MFA becomes a grant you give yourself and go into debt over to have a creative practice, right? So can we go into a real pressure cooker to make all MFAs and all terminal degrees in the arts debt-free in the United States? And what would that do to change the economic barriers to admission Brown University. Patty Ibarra, who's in our group, managed to get that done at Brown, and they've just put that program on an indefinite pause, right? So we actually have been trying to tackle this question of expanding and exploiting the university's resources, quite literally, to touch as many people inside of arts infrastructures as possible inside of our own institutions. So that's one thing that we scratch our heads about a lot. And I interrupted Jasmine because you started and I started at the same time.
I was going to say, I really appreciate Jenna Sixto and also Sarah, what you're bringing up. And I wanted to, Sarah, just bump two people. Renee Archibald, who's at Whitman, who does an annual artist residency. I actually was part of it. And then Alan Kuhari, I'm saying his last name wrong, who's at Swarthmore, and he's related to like Pig Iron and has like been a huge space to have residencies for artists. But the ways in which, and he's told me this 2 years ago, that it's interesting to think about academia as the largest funder of individual artists. So like academia is funding, you know, like my colleagues who are costume designers, set designers, et cetera, myself who does performance art, like what does that mean? And also, and I really appreciate the question, Sixto, one thing I think about, I always say like, I don't know if the word is, whatever. I always say I'm an incredibly slow processor. People don't believe that, but I like get the joke 2 days later. I'm like, ha, 2 days later. I'm a really, really slow processor. And that has been my attraction to academia. And side note, I've told many people this, I pursued a PhD as a paycheck for 5 years because I was like underemployed during the Great Recession. So I started in 2010 as a paycheck for 5 years, infrastructurally. But I think about academia in its best place as a place for slow thinking. What does slow thinking afford us? And in dialogue with our friends that have to do quick thinking. And so how might we think about like the fact that academia allows for slow thinking and what that can bring about? And also, how can you hold us accountable, which you should.
Can I add to that, Sarah? No, because I think there's two things that immediately jump to my mind. One is I think we're about to see exactly how imbricated these infrastructures are. So if funding for the sciences, for STEM, does collapse at the level that they're threatening, I think what we're going to see is a lot of that going away, right? Because there's ways in which university ecosystems existed, sort of coasted on that cushion of federal funding to sort of float the entire university. I also think we're about to run into a moment where we're going to see even greater disparities between what publics and privates can do, right? It's not a coincidence that Patty got that done at Brown, not only a private school, but an Ivy League school. That's never going to happen at UT, at least not in my lifetime. I mean, maybe it will. But I think that's the other thing we're starting to face is the model. You know, when Todd said that thing about loyalists as trustees, I'm constrained here from saying more, but I see examples of this, and I think that we're going to see a huge shift in the system, especially at Publix in the coming months, not far away. So Sixto, I totally hear you, because that's always been, I felt like one of my secret weapons. I have a professorship. So I was like, oh, I can give that money to this artist or that artist, or I can make it possible for this student to do something or that student to do something. And, you know, I'm sure that regulating professorships are way down on their list, but it doesn't mean they won't get there.
Can I just say something? I don't want to counteract Charlotte, but I do want to say at UW, in the School of Drama, all of our MFA programs are fully funded and the students get a stipend. They did reduce our students, they come in, it's for acting, directing, and design every other year. And I say that to say, I didn't know that when I started there. I think there's so I also want us to think about our assumptions. I don't know, I assume that most PhDs are funded. I assume that many MFAs aren't funded. And so what are our assumptions, and what are our assumptions that's possible at UW? I don't know the inner workings, and Todd, I'm looking at you given your amazing leadership, but it is no one who gets an MFA at UW in theater is paying for it. And so I want to put that out there that at public institutions, these are possible. There's intricacies, there's probably things that are not great, but I want to make us think what is possible, especially through a public sphere.
I just wanted to say very briefly about the question of responding to the crisis. I mean, in terms of the big crisis of the country, first we're all just citizens like everyone else, right? And so our obligations are the same as every other citizen's obligations. Every other citizen who understands what's happening. And then institutionally, I'm working really hard to hold my university leadership as accountable as I can to be creative. I think someone mentioned that earlier. To be creative and to be forthright and direct and work in collaboration and coalition with other people with this in the same situation, to hold them accountable for doing that, which they're not mostly doing, but also not to be so angry at them that I hold them responsible for everything that's happening, because my institution is certainly implicated in the trajectory of the United States to reach this point, but we are not the federal government. We're not in the executive branch right now, right? We're not the administration. And so to recognize, to hold them accountable for what they can change, and to not try to let my feeling about everything go to direct it in that direction. So that's what I'm thinking about personally, Ryan.
I mean, thanks for that. I guess part of the thing is this is not about an implication. This is actually, if we are going to be building, part of the building actually has to be based in trust, and has to be based on what can we all do with each other and how to each other. And part of what I don't understand yet is really what does academia, or what do professors have? Where's the willingness, where's the space for you all to continue to be able to work and continue to be safe, but also continue to inform the work on a hyper-local level, or even be able to lift up the hyper-local level in order to understand where the models are, in order to be able to, so that this is not just about a hyper-local solution, it is now connecting the hyper-local solutions in order to create some of those components. So I guess that's the other part of, like, there are many different places in which we are going to need to find the levers. I'm just now trying to ask you all, as to you all who are understanding some of these components, how do you all help us understand what that can be? And how are we actually doing that in partnership, instead of it continuing to be, again, the conversations happening in silos, and then all of the things, I'm like, I've got to say that there's folks that are already in that I had to do repair within our own communities, because we had moved beyond, like, that they had been the target without, and that we didn't show up for them.
The distrust of universities is very real, and I think the things that give me hope, I'm just going to say one thing that I think that universities are not doing well, and we can look at Angie Kim's 2018 Creativity Connects critique of this, and Maria critiques this, is like actually keeping pace with how artists work when we have these curricula, like undergraduate, graduate programs. So we're doing horrible with workforce development. That's an opinion. I'm the director of our grad program, so I might be losing my job. I don't have a tenure track job. But the point of the workforce development piece that is so essential to change work, right? It's like the technical assistance side of these comprehensive programs that Adam and other folks are involved in, the translation of why it's not better or worse, but different to work with a public health partner than it is arts grant maker, and the time it takes to unlearn and relearn. Universities aren't starting from there at all. We're still stuck in these aristocratic, Eurocentric models of what it means to be an artist that are born out of the professionalization that the NEA put in place in 1965, right? Fine arts centers, civic performing arts centers, Western Euro-descended aesthetic traditions, right? So what I'm interested in is, I'm inspired by, you know, again, with the ARPA money, like seeing the ways that smart people like Maida McNeil, who was graduated from the same program as Jasmine, who's now embedded and is an arts administrator, cultural commissioner in Chicago, you know, decides to get involved in the rerouting of ARPA funds, gets $700K to come through to train, you know, at the time it was 6 embedded community artists who were willing to become community health workers, but then essentially they perform community-based art that was already operative in their communities for a full-time wage with benefits and everything else. But who's doing the skilling there? The community health, like local community college, is doing the training, not the university. So I actually am interested in this larger question of, if we open up and are public in our humanities scholarship and are working with local organizations, what does an open curricula for workforce development in the arts look like in this current moment, where we're trying to get new generations up and forward into this interrogation of histories that have excluded, and also new models. What is this next generation dreaming about? How can we manifest a new system? I feel like that's one way where we could say, why don't we do open university and actually cast elders in a community as experts in hustling to keep the Hayti Heritage Center open in Durham, North Carolina, right? Like these like kind of multifaceted, multi-expertise, non-expert places. I feel like we could still have leverage in our convening power to say, let's totally overhaul workforce development. The idea of training and credentialing, which is its own market in this economy, and it's problematic. I need, like, people who are healers already in their communities now need to get a certificate in health and healing from the National Organization for Arts and Health to, be eligible, because they've signed a waiver saying they're not liable in ways that benefit the U.S. health industry. I mean, some of these things are really predatory. Credentialing itself is predatory. But can we work together on learning communities like these that are actually about they're unlearning communities and learning from each other's experiences more? Can the university, it doesn't have to happen there physically, but invite spaces where we can struggle together the same way with, wow, I'm doing great work. Boing, here's a barrier that you just created doing that work to somebody else. Okay, let's like sit and struggle with that. I mean, I think we have convening power in our spaces. This was a big lift, administratively and economically anyway, and it wasn't an easy thing to pull off, and I'm really grateful to Paul and Charlotte and Michael for doing that. But I'm wondering, like, I don't think that has been figured out yet. How can we be of service to artists formally who are in our programs, but also the communities that surround these campuses? Can we work together on what something like accountability practices, infrastructural practices, as a type of key part of art making, that's already operating under the radar all the time with such like creativity and grace in the field itself. That wasn't really an answer, but it was a ramble.
I appreciate everything you said, and thank you for all these comments as well, Sixto and everyone else. I'm coming back to something that has been touched upon several times over the past couple days, which is this like connection, knowing your neighbor, understanding what they need, and even back to Dr. Evans saying, like, asking people what they need, and they may just say yes, but it might not actually be the answer, right? And so that level of dialogue being much more about listening and being present. So I wonder if something that could happen with universities and artists and different organizations would be this like neighborliness of like, we are neighbors and I want to know. And I don't know, I'm not sure what levers I have or what, but if I don't know what's going on, I really don't know, right? So what is it about this space of listening that we can be in that is maybe not taking that first yes? Oh yes, I need this. Well, okay, let's go deeper, right? And so that's something that I'm interested in, and like, what could being neighbors and being listeners look like? And then we can see, oh, I have things I didn't realize I had because I didn't know what you needed until now. And that's my idealism, Brian, too.
Yeah. I'm Zach. Greetings, everybody. Gratitudes first. Like, lovely thoughts all weekend. I made a bunch of new friends. It was great. I had a really nice time. And Paul sent me a very direct invite. I really appreciated it. And I was like, well, I like Paul. I trust him. I'm going to come see. I like all these words. I'm going to come see this thing, and I'm going to meet people. And then I did this thing. I mean this in all earnestness and kindness. And it's maybe a series of questions. Who is this for? Like is it, and it's okay, like and I've never been to a symposium before and maybe didn't fully understand the words. Is this a space for y'all to share ideas with each other, or are there people missing in this room? And I mean it as a true open-ended question. I think both are fine.
My response would be there's a lot of impulses here. And we're in also probably that space, that difficult space that Dr. Jackson was speaking about tonight, where, this is the hard work of figuring out, right? And also there's probably some measure of let's discern what could maybe take us a little bit further in knowledge and practice, right? And when I say practice, I mean in a sincere, gesture to build relationships in such a way that it's productive, right? In my experience of doing sort of research in this area, I've often heard that the academy doesn't keep up, or we're separate, or we're distinct, from practice. I've heard it in many different ways. It's often very dismissive, and I think, but I'm standing right here trying my best to learn, right? And yet here I have this all these colleagues who share the same impulses to support, to lift up, to really engage these things, not just to serve the students, but actually serve the community, right? We all came to this work through some mission, right? Research was never just on the page. It was and how does this support community in some way? So some of the things that come to mind in this are, is this that sort of incremental relationship building? Is this that sharing of knowledge? Supporting you to even meet other people too, right? Or supporting other people to meet you, or support, everybody there, but also just get to know the wonderful work you're doing. And also in the process, someone mentions a study, does this or whatever, or you feel more sure about a direction or a choice you have made, that somewhere where you're going, right? In some respects, that sounds very, sort of woo, works, just because I don't have a big word. But in some respects, it's also, that's the fuel that often becomes more focused writing and research and scholarship and organization and service and teaching too. Because the type of work you broadly and also you particularly do is really important for people to understand, because it is so well theorized within a community context about the ways that people come together now.
I appreciate it.
Oh, if I could add. So in Texas, they have a saying I love, which is, you got to dance with them that brung you.
I thought you were going to say bless your heart, which I was like, oh my God, don't do it.
No, that would be bad.
I know.
I'm from Brooklyn, but even I know that'd be bad. So I think what I have come to embrace fully is what I tell my students I call spaghetti ants the wall. If we build it, who comes? Not they will come, but who will show up? So I think one of the things that I always love about things like this is the list of people who couldn't join us is almost as long, or is as long, or maybe longer than the people who couldn't. And it wasn't that the people who said they wouldn't come were turning us down out of rejection. It was often calendar or family, or, but I also have a thing that even just on this campus, there's some huge events going on in other places. So I think part of it is it's who is here, and we run with it. I think the other is that one of the things it's sort of perverse, but I've taken great comfort from, is how bad most of us are at predicting the future. So there's a sort of faith I have, okay, so 5 years ago, Sarah said, let's get on a Zoom. Well, I go, okay. And then we said, what if we asked the NEH for money? Okay. And then they said yes, which also seems sort of odd. And then we said, well, what if we just brought a whole bunch of people together to talk and just see what happened? And, it would have been great to have, there's so many other things would be great, but I think it's also back to singularity. This isn't the thing, it's one of the things. And I think that's part of it too. And so for me, it's the cool part is I don't know yet. Maybe it will be something. Or maybe it'll just be we all walked away with amazing lists of things we want to look up or things we want to know more about. So
it would be great to hear as our final note.
And I just want to point out
a response from each of the research group members, because I feel inclined to speak for myself, but not for the group on this. I do think that we got funded from the NEH, and one of my passionate pleas inside of that is the thing that annoys me about academia in a way in the humanities is that we get credit for having the critique. End of story. right? Exposure of the problem. It's what we get rewarded for. You know, at conferences, you sit and say, ding, 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 I spot the problem. And I think we share, and the people in this room share, wanting to have a more service-oriented relationship to the arts field, because many of the policies and the promotions and the programs that get lofted around and impact artists are deeply ahistorical. Like, nobody's putting them in context, and artists just need money, so they're chasing it, right? So, like, we were asking, what productive relationships can people who are in the space of slow thinking and work and contextualizing, what kinds of productive relationships can we have? So really on a humanities front, that to me was who it was for, is like, not all academics will ever want to do this, but this group had a fire in their ass to say, wow, if I explain how the 501c3 infrastructure worked in a book, I'll help an artist disinherit that they're failing, when really that classist structure was designed to protect a certain type of artist, right? So I've seen it happen very interpersonally, that this context helps people disinherit that they're failing. But that's a small thing. And I think the question Sixto is asking about bigger institutional risks and bearing those risks, because when you have a proper job, you can bear more risk. You can stand at the front lines. You can take the hit. So I want to see more humanists, more academics from any stripes take some hits here and stop crying their own scarcity narratives, when really, like, that is the crisis capitalism we want to avoid. But to make a better use of not wasting this crisis, to say there's space here. I don't know what's going to amount to anything, but here's space for your group to gather. I will stage manage your revolution. I will run the garbage out for you. Sometimes you got to get in the way rear guard, white people like me, and stage manage that shit, instead of right now talking like you're the lecturer, which is what I'm doing, right? So you got to know how to downshift and upshift your own practice. And I think it's through learning communities like these, where you've got so many smart people in the room saying, all hands on deck right now. So I don't recuse anyone in this room. I don't think we would have showed up if we didn't think we'd have something to offer. But I think that accountability practice looks very different on the basis of who you are. But are you gonna bear some risk on this if you're in a place of institutional privilege? I think that's just a question we can probably all sit with. And then not try and hold all the humanists accountable, but for ones who want to use research-driven action toward manifestation of systems change, then it does take all hands on deck. It takes historical revisionism, retellings, multivocal tellings of how things have foreclosed. So maybe we can do that in the spirit of storytelling. Michael, you haven't closed out. Who is this for you?
I just want to close out by saying thank you to it's 6:31 after 2 long days. I'm exhausted, but I'm in good company here, and I just want to thank everyone that's in the audience. I want to thank everyone here on the panel. I want to thank the grad students. I want to thank the tech. I want to thank everyone who's taken care of this room, catering, all of that. And I want to thank Michael DeWatley, Charlotte Canning, Paul Bonin Rodriguez, and Sarah Wilbur. I'll close with that.
It's choreography.
I'll just say, who's this for? In November, many of us gathered in the Office for Arts and Culture with the head of the Office for Arts and Culture, who's a former experimental theater worker, and a lot of us are in dialogue with. I just published an article with Randy Engstrom, who used to head the Office of Arts and Culture for 10 years in Seattle, and so I think we were in dialogue with, like, making local change. And, like, my students, it changes what they think is possible. And so thinking again about that slow thinking and scholarship. But also I think who this for is the relationality, is the history building, is the speaking, talking to those in power, talking to politicians, and is the education. Like, part of, I mean, I've been talking to many of you. I'm putting together my performance art syllabus next quarter, but even that, right, the things that each of you add and how that affects how we teach affects what our students and more broadly what the public thinks is possible. So I think it's for all of those things.
Thank you, Jasmine. Thank all of you for being here. It makes me think about the choreographer Trisha Brown, who said the people who will be in the dance are the people who show up for rehearsal. So I really appreciate all of you showing up, and I think that is a big key for me, what I want to focus on moving forward. Continue to show up, continue to be there, be in relationship, be a neighbor. And I also now keep candy in my office, and I try to keep my door open more often. And that's a big deal for me because I have a lot of work to do. So thank you.
think that if you can find something in any of these 2 days of discussion that means something to you that you want to take away, then it was for you.
This is our mic drop, everyone. Love and applause and golden love to everyone who's stuck this out and all the supporters, backstage infrastructure. And now we've widened the social infrastructure of the group. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Thank you for joining if you came through HowlRound. And a big selfie is going to happen on stage.
Valentine, sweet comic Valentine, you make me smile with my heart. Your looks are laughable, unphotographable, yet you're my favorite work of art.